Well, good morning, good day, everyone. Welcome back to Masters of the Universe Classics Director's Commentary with me, Scott, Toyguru Neitlich, the brand manager for 95% of the line. And we're going figure by figure, talking about how we made each character. And today we're talking about Zodak. And not that Zodak, but the other Zodak, the one with the K in his name and the tattoos and all that fancy schmancy stuff. Yes, people often ask, well, what in the world? Why are there two Zodaks? There's Zodak and Zodak. Probably couldn't even tell the difference there with how I was pronouncing them, could you? Well, this is Zodak with a K, as opposed to the vintage line had Zodak with a C. And essentially, he was a redesign of the character for the 2000X Mike Young Productions animated series, where, honestly, they wanted to ethnically diversify the cast and wanted an African-American character. They tried that with Stratos and Beastman, and let's just say it didn't work out too well. So Zodak became the character that was going to be ethnically diversified, and honestly, it worked out well. He looked really awesome and badass, and to tell you the truth, he is absolutely one of my favorite characters in Masters of the Universe. Zodak with a K, that is. Zodak with a C, I could, take or leave, and why they changed the spelling of the name, I have absolutely no idea. But I'm kind of glad they did. Because since Zodak with a C and Zodak with a K are very different characters, at least as opposed to like what they do and how they function, it worked out well that we could justify doing them each as an individual character and not just doing them as a repaint. So hey, yay for spelling changes. So this was Zodak with a K from the 2000X series, and again, very different function as a character from Zodak with a C, who was more of a kind of advisor and cosmic enforcer. This guy was like a mystic warrior. And to say he had one of the strangest superpowers of all time, well, I mean, there are stranger superpowers out there of all time, but his superpower was to understand an opponent's weakness and use it against them, which still to this day, I'm not sure I totally understand that. But visually, this was always shown by his tattoos glowing, which was, I guess, a cool way of showing that superpower working. I mean, I guess how else are you going to show someone using their powers against you if you don't have glowing tattoos to show that you're using your superpowers? Alright, either way, he was a cool character. And he was kind of a repaint. And I want to explain what that is from a toy perspective. So a redeco or a repaint is when you take an exact same tool, a mold, and issue it in another color or another deco. This works great for something like Hot Wheels, where kids want millions and millions of cars in different colors. It also works great for Hot Wheels in the sense that they can do what's called a label slap and put different intellectual property on an existing Hot Wheels and suddenly turn a Hot Wheels car into a Star Wars car, but use an existing Hot Wheels van. Redecos also work great for action figure lines, like DCU Classics. We had lots of versions of Batman and could redeco the same tool that we'd invested in over and over. Now, a redeco is different from a paint variation. Like with this vintage Tila figure, the hair was a different color. This wasn't a deliberate change. This was just something with the factory, called a factory error, etc., etc., versus something that is a direct deco change on Tila, where you're actually issuing Tila in different colors that you ask for, not that the vendor may, accidentally make slight changes. A good example of a deco change, well, a great example is like what Transformers did in the 80s, where they had their plane to robot tool and issued it as multiple different characters just by changing the deco. That's an awesome deco change. Maybe not so good of a deco change as taking things like this 25th anniversary Wolverine and just coloring Wolverine silver and putting out way too many of them. 25,000? That's a lot of silver Wolverines out there. So, yeah, crazy deco. Another, here's another great example. He-Man in different colors becomes different characters. I think what makes a great deco change is when the deco change changes the character, like with Transformers or this example. when you have a line like Hot Wheels where you could just change the car color, that's great for kids. But when the deco change can actually completely alter who the character is simply by doing the same tool, the same mold in a different color palette, to me that is like awesome toy making. Because these tools cost a lot of money. I mean, they're really expensive, between $20,000 and $100,000, depending on how much tooling is going into it. Now, one other kind of confusing things about deco change is sometimes people in their minds think that toys are just deco change when they're actually reimagining. So, for example, the slime pit from the vintage Masters of the Universe line, beloved toy. This was one of my personal favorite toys when I was a kid, and to this day I'm still kind of upset we never got to the classics version. I'll get into that in a future video. This was just an amazing toy, and it showed up again in Mattel's Harry Potter line, and a lot of people jumped thinking that this was an example of a redeco, where they just took the He-Man vintage slime pit and turned it into Harry's slime chamber. But honestly, if you look at them side by side, you will see that they are definitely not the same toy. This was just inspired by. So this isn't a redeco. This was just a toy inspired by it. And by the way, I know I'm on a tangent, but speaking of slime pits and slime, did you know Mattel invented slime? Like, literally invented slime? Slime is so huge today in toys, and this was like a Mattel invention. And it used to get on people's carpets all the time, including mine, and that was why my slime pit was taken away. Mattel actually replaced thousands of people's carpets back in the day. If you called up Mattel, if you got slime on your carpet back in the 80s, they would actually come and replace your carpet. Wish I knew that, then I wouldn't have had the toy taken away. Alright, totally on a tangent. Back to Zodak. So, Zodak, he wasn't a straight repaint or redeco, because we swapped out some of the parts, which was really cool. So we were able to give him, for example, Hero's loincloth or shorts and boots, and we were able to give him the gloved hands. So it visually he looked different from a silhouette standpoint from Zodak with a C. So that made it kind of more than just a repaint. It made it very much showing that he was an original character and a different character from Zodak with a C. And because, sharing is caring, and that's really awesome, the very clever way we did this to make him a non-tooled figure was, if you recall, Zodak with a C only came with his blaster. He only came with one weapon, which kind of went against the later rules of all characters coming up with more than one accessory, so we could prep them for an eventual retail release in a movie year. That never happened, but that's not important right now. The point is to do Zodak with a K and to do his staff, which was his kind of signature weapon in 2000X. I know the toy also came with this like crazy space blaster thing and a removable helmet. But to get away with making him a repaint only, we tooled his 2000X staff at the same time as we tooled Zodak with a C, his head, his armor, and his gun. So yeah, I know we never did Zodak with a K's fancy 2000X gun or laser blaster that came with the toy. But, if you wanted to give him a blaster, it wasn't that hard. It's not like there was any lack of extra accessories in the MOTU Classics line, especially with all of those cool weapons packs, etc., etc. But by, being, by being clever, and this was, a design and tooling, group thing that, they did. This wasn't, like something that I did. This was what Terry did. And speaking of what Terry did, he painted the tattoos in glow-in-the-dark paint. He didn't tell anyone. He didn't even tell me. This was one of those things that just surprised everyone, including the fans, when it showed up, and I really got to applaud Terry for that. This was one of those things that just really made him above and beyond toy designer, that, he would just do, glow-in-the-dark paint and not tell anyone, just for that surprise and delight factor. And it's one of the things I love about toys, is that emotional surprise and delight when you get something and it has a feature you don't even realize it has. It makes you happy, and that's what toys are all about. So yeah, way to go, Terry. You're the man. All right, back to Zodak with a K. So one thing we weren't able to get out was his helmetless head. which in the 2000X line, the toy came with a removable helmet, and in the show, he often didn't have his helmet. And fans were making custom versions of this quite a lot, doing a helmetless head that they would sell at conventions and stuff. Because this was a straight repaint, cobbled together from different parts, you know, again, he had the hero loincloth, and he had the hero boots, and he had the Hordak gloves, and Zodac's armor and head, and that staff that we were able to tool at the same time as the other Zodak. So it was still a repaint. There were no newly tooled parts. And that was actually part of the whole strategy of this figure, was in addition to the monthly figures, this was the first double figure of a month, where we were doing more than one figure. And which meant we couldn't do that extra head, because there was no. The idea was to do a figure with zero tooling as that second monthly figure. It was an experiment to see how many we could sell, or if we could sell a second figure. And to do that, we had to use no tooling. So eventually, when Strobo came along here, we were able to include with Strobo the alternate head for Zodak, because he did have some tooling behind him, and we were able to use that tooling to give him this head. And to me, that's part of what makes MOTU Classics a great line, because it would offer accessories down the line that would complement figures you already had. And that's really what makes a line so collectible, because it rewards longtime buyers, longtime customers with something extra above and beyond. And that was really cool. So that was very much Zodak. He was a figure that was, a 2000X reimagining. That through the magic of MOTU Classics, we were able to make him into a separate character. And he worked great for that second monthly test slot to see, is the audience of MOTU Classics big enough that we could offer the monthly figures that eventually would be part of a subscription, and offer a second figure as well. Eventually, all the figures would be part of the subscription, more or less. There were exceptions. But this was the first time we had 2 figures in 1 month. And with no tooling for the second figure, Zodak with a K was perfect, because he allowed us to do an original character. We were able to, get his staff tooled with a different one, and everyone kind of won. And it was a great way to get him out. I really do love this character. He's one of my favorites. And sometimes, the reimagining of a character, well, every once in a while, the sequel is just better than the original. As cool as Zodak with a C is, I prefer Zodak with a K. I just think he, kicks so much butt with his light-up glowing tattoos.